Hello guys, my name is Base Gaming and I've been asked to make a tutorial on track textures. And as you can see, there's a lot of detail. Let me scroll out. The detail goes away, so it's smooth and nice and good for the performance. So looking at all of these cracks, like for example, we have a crack here, a crack here, a crack here, and if we look at it from the side where the light hits it, we can see it interacts with the light. And as we get closer, a second texture appears underneath, which is a detail texture. All of these little bumps, all of these little crevices, they all interact with the light, and they only appear once you get close, because obviously we wouldn't see it when you are far away, like this. And how we do that, that's what I'm going to teach you today. You can also switch it to night and see how it interacts with the light. All of these little cracks, like here is a crack, here is a crack, and they all interact beautifully. And yeah, that's what we are going to do today. So also don't forget, in the description you can find Halifax GP, the track you're currently looking at. If you do like this track, make sure to go to the description and leave a download. I would very much appreciate that. So first of all, shout out to Lucian, who made this tutorial in like what, 2015 or something? 2016, and all of the knowledge is from this one post. Everyone keeps linking, but many people do not understand what is actually going on, so I'm going to explain it in further detail in a video tutorial. But basically, if you want to read along, this is basically what we're doing, and also the post goes into more detail because they're using a shader with more possibilities. Anyways, we'll get into that later. So first of all, what you need is image editor. I'm using Photoshop because it has many features which we do need. And you need a possibility to import and export .dds files, because you don't want to use JPEG files or something like that for textures. That's not good for the performance. We want to have DDS textures. So one thing you can do is use the NVIDIA plugin for Photoshop, which can export DDS files in the correct format, but as long as you can export in the BC3, or what is it called, BTS5, I think that's the second name. There are like two names for the same format. As long as you can format it in that, export it in that format, you are fine. So anyways, what you want to do is first of all get a nice texture of the road. This is my texture, and it is recommended for it to be a little bit longer, so you don't see the repetition, because if your texture is not that long, as you can see, if it was cut out here, then you would have the same repetition each time. So this crack right here, which you can see right here, would repeat every single time, and you would see that, you would notice that, especially when you're driving at speed or when you're looking at the road at a shallow angle. So if you do have a shorter texture, what you can do is like expand the canvas, like make it double the size, then flip the texture around, and as you can see, my texture was half the length, and you can see this crack and this crack, those are the same cracks. So what I did was just copy, like it was like this was my object, I just duplicated it, and select it again, I duplicated it, I turned it around like this, and then I connected these. I made the line disappear, which you can do with the healing brush. Where's the line? I already lost it because it's a good texture. I right here, I fixed it, and yeah. Then you have a long texture. So that's step number one, getting a long texture. So the second thing we need is a new channel. And that one is telling the engine how much specular to apply. So specular is like, if we look back at this here, and as we can see, these white reflections coming from the sun, this diffused white reflections, those are the specular stats. So the more specular you have, the more of this white reflection you see. And that is being dictated by a second channel, which is the alpha channel. And what you want to do to create that, so in the beginning you have your texture, and you want to duplicate that. So we want to have a second layer. And the end result we want to have is like this. So where it's white, we will have more specular, and where it's darker, where it's black, like if it's completely black, we don't have any specular at all. So this is what makes it look a little bit more dynamic, because it's not just the same value everywhere, but we have like variations. So right here we have more specular than here. And we get this by copying our layer. Then we go to the adjustments. And first of all, we're going to go to hue and saturation and make it black and white. Then we can increase, not increase the lightness. That's wrong. We go to the next adjustment layer and we go to brightness and contrast, and we increase the brightness. And why is it not black and white? There you go. Now it's black and white. Increase the brightness. And then lastly, what we can do is go to the levels and pull it back a little bit to increase the whites and increase the blacks by dragging this here. So this is where the blacks start. This is where the whites start, like where the maximum value is. And as we do that, we can see that we have a similar result to what I already had before that. And then what you want to do is you want to highlight all of them, all of the layers we've just created, and merge them into a single layer. So now what we have is this one. We can then copy that by selecting all of it, then Control C. Then you want to go to the channels, which will look like this for you. Like, let me delete that. So then you want to go to the channels. You want to create a new channel, which is called Alpha 1. We'll just call that Alpha. And we want to paste what we've just copied in here. So now, ideally, you would want to have it a little bit more lighter, but I mean, it depends on the road. Whatever you like, you'll see the results and just play around with it. And you will see if it works or not, if it is to your liking. Then you want to enable all of the channels again. You want to disable this one and just enable your normal texture. So we have the normal texture enabled. We have the 3 color channels and the alpha channel, and we enable them all, and then we can export those. We'll do that at the end though. Now the next thing you need is a normal map, and a normal map is what dictates how the light interacts with the texture. So if you think back, all of the little crevices, all of the cracks in the road, they interacted with the light and through shadows. That's not the mesh, that's not like actually 3D objects interacting with the light, but that's still just a 2D texture, and it is able to interact with the light through a normal map. And this is what a normal map looks like. So there's 2 ways. Either you grab a texture, for example, this texture is not created by me. I took it from a copyright-free, license-free texture website, and it already supplied the normal map, which is nice, but you do not always have the normal map. So later in this video, we will create the normal map. But for now, we will just go along with this one. And as you can see, we've done the same thing. So it was half the length, and we doubled it, turned it around, etc. The same thing as this one, because it has to match it, obviously. And then we removed the seam line in the middle, where I connected the 2 textures. And that is basically already it for this one. So the next thing you want to do is grab a nice little road texture. You can find these by just searching for road textures. And as you can see, those are the little bumps we see when getting real close. So this is the detail layer and the detail texture. And that is what you can see when you only get real close. The resolutions and all of that, you can find that in this post. So if you scroll down, we can see that this post at least says 1024 by 1024, and it is enough due to the reason as it is repeated a lot, and you can't see the difference between a small and big texture as long as you have like enough. So 1024 by 1024 is enough. I've tested it and it seems to work. So here the same thing applies as with the road. We have the normal texture. This is the one which is used to apply the texture. And then on the alpha channel, we have the specular again, so the reflections. But in this case, we do not want it to reflect as much. So what you can do here to create the alpha channel is make a new layer. And we go to the adjustments. Obviously, once again, we turn the saturation down. In this case, it's black and white, but you still want to do it because why not? We go into the adjustment layer and go to the levels. We will increase the blacks. So not a lot is reflecting from this layer, because we only want the peaks, like the highest spots to reflect. So what we're doing is we're turning it a little bit darker. Maybe that's too much. Like this. So with this we can control which direction it goes. So we want more black. And we'll put it like this. Select all. Select all. Right click merge layers. Select all, copy. And then we create a new channel. We call it the alpha channel. And we want to copy this in here. That is a detail layer done. But now what would you do if you did not have a normal map? Because obviously, as we have seen in the beginning of the video when getting close, the light does interact with this texture, and for that obviously we once again need a normal map. Now in the last case with the track we've already got it provided, but in case we don't get a normal map with the texture, we can create it ourselves. So what you want to do is press on the layer, go to filter, and 3D, then generate normal map. It takes a second. And as we can see here, it turns it into a normal map. You even get a preview of your texture. As you can see, it's a 3D material now. And one thing we can change is how big the bumps are. And as you can see, the light interacts more with it, so you have more bigger shadows. And you can change the blur, so how harsh it is, which makes sense. So what you don't want to do is set blur to 0, 0, because that's way too harsh, but like a small value for the detail map. And go a little bit smaller, but at the end of the day, you will just have to save a few versions, try it out, see what looks best in-game, and then take that one. This is about playing around with it, being creative, seeing what works with your track and the surroundings you have. Like not every road is the same. So let's say I'm fine with that, and I press OK. And now we have a normal map, and we'll have to export that one as well. So the last thing we need is a mask. And our mask is telling the game how to combine the different textures. And you can use different shaders which enable more or less detail textures which you can apply over it. So in this case, as we're only using one detail texture, which is this one, like this one, or only one, we only have to use 2 colors. So what I did was I created this here, which is just a blank texture of what's the resolution? Of 1019 times 256. So it has to obviously it has to be the same ratio as your track texture, but you can make it fairly small because it's only masked and you can't see it in the end. So what this is doing is it's combining the 2 textures, and everywhere where the red color is, we can see our highway texture, our diffuse texture, which is this one. And everywhere the blue is, this texture is being shown, so this one. So what you want to do is just, let me create a new layer. So what you would do is you would go into the color picker and take the red color, you fill it in, and then you can get creative, because this is where the fun happens, where you can go to blue and just paint over it. You can set the hardness a little bit down, the opacity a bit down, and then you just play around with it. Like this, a little bit in the middle. And what you don't want to do is like have these harsh lines, because obviously you can tell it really easily. And as you can see for me, if I disable this one, it's really soft. So you have blue everywhere here, but it's really soft, because in my case that works the best. But like on the edges I have way more. And if we go back in game later, we will see that we can actually tell that on the edges we have like these darker spots and the lighter spots in the middle. So you just paint this. One tip is to use a brush which is like not this clean. So for example, what you can use is this one. And then if you paint, reset the opacity a bit down, and if you paint over, you don't have these straight edges, but you can like make actual textures. And this is what I use to make like on the sides and stuff. And then you can make a clean texture. And where the blue is, the more blue you have, the more of this texture you will see, and the more the red you have, the more of this texture you will see. So now we want to export all of these. So let's start off. So if I wanted to export my highway texture, you go to File, Save As, and as I'm using Photoshop, I am using the NVIDIA texture plugin for Photoshop, and you go to Save as a copy so that you can see all of the options. And in this case, I'm pressing the DDS, NVIDIA texture export thingy. You want to call this something useful. So, like for example, track 1 diffuse.dds. You go to save. And this window here opens, and then what you want to do is export it as a BC3, which is a DXT5. So if you have a DXT5 or BC3 option, that is what you want to choose. And then you just go to save. And our texture is done. So we can see we have a track 1 diffuse.dds. You do the same thing for all of the other textures. So you export the normal map, you export the mask, and you export the detail texture with and without. So once just the like this one, and once the normal map. Once you have all of those, you can already start applying the textures. So I'm going to show you two things. So once inside of Racetrack Builder, if you're using that, and once inside the KS editor. So first of all, if you are using the Racetrack Builder, yes, you know you can just change the texture of a track by going into the track tool, then going into the draw material. You can select a new material here. You can insert your own and just drag it on top of a road. As you can see, it's kind of scuffed, so we have to turn it around, and as you can see, we have the new texture applied now. And there it is. Don't worry how it looks in Racetrack Builder. For example, for me it's really, really shiny, but that's just Racetrack Builder not being able to do anything with it. So that's how you apply it, but we have to change a few things. So once you have your material inside of here, what you have to do is go to Edit, then Materials. We go down to our texture, which in my case is this one. Then the shader we are using is the multi-map NM detail. You press that, go to textures, and now you can start applying all of the textures we just added. So for the diffuse, you press on load new. And those were my sponsor signs. So you press on load new, go to your texture folder, and you load up the texture, which is the diffuse one, like the colored one. You go to the normal map and you load up the normal map. And I'm always getting the wrong folder by default when pressing load, but you get the point. So you open the normal map. Then you go to maps, you open the red map we just made. You go to detail, you add the detail one, and the detail normal, That makes sense, right? All right. And then you've already made your texture. That's basically it. The only thing we can do now is go into KS editor. For that, I need to export my track. So give me just a second. We open up the KS editor. Open up our track. And as we can see, our track got imported finally. So the track, the texture I've just worked on is about here. We can look at it in game. As you can see, there's a detail there. I get close. There it is. It appears. The cracks are there. And I'm pressing right click to select it. Go to materials. Go to materials. There is it is the KS per pixel multi-map NM detail shader we've just applied with our 5 textures. So in case you're not reusing the Racetrack Builder, it won't be automatically applied. In this case, like for example, if you were on KS per pixel, just change it, apply all of the textures, and it should work. Another thing which you can do, which gives you more detail, is to use the Chaos multi-layer Fresnel here. What you can do is use the Chaos multi-layer Fresnel NM texture, and with that you get the ability to add another detail layer. And when using the mask, instead of just using red and blue, you have red for the diffuse, blue for the detail 1, and then you have green for the detail 2. So for detail A and detail B, you have 2 different colors. And in that way, you can mix even more textures. So you can do even more blending, make it look even better with more detail and stuff. So if, for example, if I needed more detail, I could add this through the multi-layer Fresnel NM. But as I'm just using one detail layer, this is way enough for me. And yeah, at that point you can just do your casual standard settings, like for example the specular, how much it's reflecting, the diffuse, how much, and the ambient, like how much it's interacting with the light, etc., etc. Just play around with it. You can change these in your xconfig.ini, so through CSP as well. So you are even able to change these live while viewing them in-game. And if you have done everything correctly, then you should be at a point where if you go in-game and load your track up, you should be able to see a texture with all of the details we've just added. So let's change the light to something a little bit more nice and inviting. There you go, some direct sunlight. As you can see, there it is. Our detail is there. We can see the blending. We can see the... so if we look closely, one of... like, do you see this dark spot here? Oh, the sun just ruined it. Okay, from this angle you can see it. You see this dark spot and this dark spot. So that's basically where we drew the blue on our mask. So the mask is dictating how the two things are being blended in together. So what I did was make like really light streaks, so where the tires would go, and on the side of the road, because I figured that would look realistic, and it kind of did after a few iterations. And the biggest tip I can give you is just play around with it. Like for example, you can see I have many normal maps. I have my mask 1, 2, 3, 4. It took me 4 tries to get a good version. As you can see, I did way too sharp lines. Like that didn't work. Then I tried to make it lighter. I made to try it even lighter. And then in the end I made it even lighter. And that in the end worked. So just play around with it. There is no correct answer. There's just playing around with it, and you'll find one way or another. Yeah, it's a creative process. I hope that helped you. I hope you use it, because at the end of the day, if you do, I will get tracks with better textures, so it's a win-win situation. Yeah, thank you for watching. If you do want to leave a like or thank me in any way for helping you, you can just go to the description and download my track Halifax GP, because honestly that's the best thing you can do for me, is to just enjoy my creation, my content, my art. Cool! Thanks for watching. I hope it does work out for you. Also in the description you can find the link to our Discord, our track building Discord, so you can ask questions or share knowledge there. Have a good one. Bye.